Okay, welcome everyone to the return of the crack. You didn't ask for it, but it's happening anyway. My name is Peter Breen. I'm a slightly inferior host to Brian, who you set up this group and ran it so well, uh, got us through lockdown, and had so many great um, in-person meetups, brewery tours, and the like. So cheers to Brian to start off with. Um, I'm going to keep things pretty simple, at least for the first year. I'll probably do one or two maybe in-person meetups, but I think the virtual events like this are useful too because not everybody can make the in-person meetups, or not everybody wants to go to the in-person meetups. So I think the two kind of complement each other quite well. Um, so yeah, like I said, you can ask questions with the to the breweries that we have on today. And without any further ado, let's get started. So first up, we have Scott from 8 Degrees. Welcome, Scott. If you wouldn't mind, maybe just
Yeah,
giving an introduction of yourself and of 8
thank you.
Degrees.
Yeah, so I'm Scott Agent, the two founders and owners of now re-owners of 8 Degrees Brewing. Uh, so I'm originally from New Zealand, been in Ireland for 20 plus years. I was an engineer before being a brewer. Um, we started up um, 8 Degrees Brewing in 2011 with I set it up with a with an Australian friend, Cam Wallace, and we were really at the start of kind of really the craft beer boom that happened. So we weren't one of the first brewers. I think we were maybe 8 or 9 or 10, kind of in the opening sequence. There were others like Dungarvan and Metalman who were sort of a year or so ahead of us. Trouble Brewing a year or so ahead of us, but we were sort of um, in there, and we the brewery's in Mitchelstown in County Cork. It's in North Cork. It's about 15 minutes out from where I live. And we set up in Mitchelstown because it in the northern part of the town it has an incredibly soft water source. So anyone that's into home brewing here knows that water chemistry is incredibly important for brewing. The north side of Mitchelstown, the water supply comes from the Gauteng Mountains, which is a sandstone catchment, and so that makes brewing sort of lighter coloured beers like pilsners and IPAs and such. Um, it's a more natural process. We can work with that natural chemistry that's there. So we started up in 2011, really at the early stages of the craft beer boom, and grew like crazy. We brewed many beers. We our little 15 hectoliter brew house. We had bought that secondhand from Carlo Brewing Company. It was Carlo Brewing's first brewery, and we just it became a monopoly game for a few years, where every time the bank balance was the right side of zero, we would buy more and more fermenters and more and more fermenters, and it kept uh, going like that until really we couldn't grow anymore. And we then did a very audacious expansion where we went over to the African island of Mauritius and dismantled the second largest brewery out of Mauritius, um, shipped it over to Mitchelstown and set to installing it in Mitchelstown. The reason why we did that was really a top of the range German brew house, a Casper Schultz brewery, which is really seen as the Rolls Royce of brewing equipment. We sort of wanted that caliber of equipment, and the fact it was sitting off the coast of Africa meant that we could afford it, and that became a major project that took 3 or 4 years to build up that brewery. But really, we were quite. I mean, looking back, it was a pretty crazy move. It's a pretty substantial brewery, and we were just putting the finishing touches on that brewery in 2018 when we were approached out of the blue by Irish distillers looking to acquire a brewery to brew beer for their castmates whiskey. Um, we we ended up selling the brewery to them. We continued working in the brewery for a few years, for about 4 years after selling it, and then we completely left the brewery for about a year and a half. We went into different industries. We bought a leisure centre and got into something completely different. But we we became aware that Irish distillers were looking to sell off the 8 degrees again, and we were starting to miss our time in 8 degrees. We felt that we still had ideas and creativity that we could bring into the industry. We were missing that creative outlet ourselves, and saw the opportunity to come back in. So we just almost exactly a year ago, we bought back 8 Degrees Brewing, and really for the last year have been running it directly ourselves again. So that's sort of a quick snapshot of 8 Degrees.
Well, thanks very much. The operation of transferring that brewery kit all the way from Mauritius must have been quite the operation. You probably deserve some kind of medal for that. I think I remember hearing Treaty City did something similar. Not as far as Mauritius, but they transferred a brewery kit from, might have been somewhere in Scandinavia or somewhere.
Okay.
But so I guess what's it like being back? Like how have things changed? Is it for the better now that you're an independent brewery again, compared to how it was before with the Irish distillers?
Yeah. Like the craft beer space always moves fast. We always found that every 6 months we had to reimagine the way that we saw the brewery and ourselves. And from the outside looking in, it probably looks like very incremental, slow evolution of things. But from within looking out, there's to remain relevant, and the craft beer space requires sort of continue evolving, and so we kind of feel like we lost a few years of that evolution process having sold it. So what we learned is working for a big corporation is the they don't the ability to innovate and to create new beers is really quite challenging, because there's a quite a lengthy approval process. I mean, it would take them 6 to 8 months to approve a new beer concept. I mean, when we were trying to explain, well, we like to release a new beer every month.
Hmm.
This is sort of how we prefer to roll, and that's sort of what the market expects of us. So we coming back in, like we've kind of, it's taken us a bit to get back up to speed where the market has evolved to, in the absence of the period of time that we've been kind of keeping up with how things have moved. But it's a challenging market. Like there's I mean, obviously, I mean, everybody knows that there's been a lot of inflation happening, a lot of costs have gone up. The deposit return scheme has been really tough for the industry. It's been quite damaging for can sales, and the even just the way that selling your beer happens is quite different now. Like the supermarkets and such generally not willing to deal directly with individual breweries. You have to go through sort of wholesalers and distributors to supply the market. There's not as many specialist craft beer shops, out independent outlets that as well. Like some of the good ones have just moved almost entirely over to wine from craft beer, and so it's a different kind of place. Like it is a hell of a lot more challenging at the moment. But I guess on the plus side, like the I think from the consumer's perspective, there's a hell of a lot of craft beer on the market now. Like the quality standard of Irish craft beer is vastly higher now than it was like six, 8, 9, 10 years ago. I mean, you can go into almost any sort of decent sized supermarket now, which I mean before you couldn't go into any supermarket and get any decent beer and get a really good array of really good quality beer that you can drink with some confidence that it's going to taste pretty good. That you don't have a sort of like a high drain pour kind of cost that you're having to factor into the beer that you're buying. So the quality bar is way higher now, and that's obviously to the better of the industry. So so there's good trends and there's bad trends. The it's sort of the style evolution has had to kind of make sense of as well. I mean, and while craft beer is a bit more commonplace now, the range of styles is still quite narrow in the beer space. But the
So
roundabout way of saying good and bad.
yeah. So I guess on that, like, what are your plans? I guess I know you're what is it, a year back at this stage? So maybe there's a certain element of still getting your feet under the table. But what are your plans for your beer portfolio? I mean, I know you've got your core range, but do you want to go back to brewing a different beer every month? I guess the other part of that is you mentioned about the supermarkets not wanting to deal directly with smaller producers, but what about pubs as well? Like, are you going to like where would your focus be? Will it be more on the on trade or the off trade? And I guess obviously your beer offerings as well. Like, will there be more experimentation?
Yeah. So I mean, this year, like early this year, we're reinstalling our original brew house in parallel to our now much larger brew house to be able to do some much smaller batches. And so our batch size at the moment is 6,000 liters, which it does constrain the degree of experimentation that you can do with when your batch size is so large and in such a small market. By bringing our original brew house back on stream in parallel to that, we'll be able to do much smaller batches and with a much more higher degree of experimentation in those batches. So so that will sort of enable us to expand out. I mean, we before did a lot of sort of wild fermentations and barrel aged beers and such, but we know how to do those. I mean, and we enjoy doing those. It's
We enjoy drinking them.
Yeah. So we'll get back to doing those when we sort of are able to bring that batch size back down. But like we're I think like, I guess one of the interesting things with running a brewery in Ireland versus other countries is it's such a small And you as a brewery that has any ambition for any degree of scale, you have to be a few things to a few different people, and so you have to have beers that appeal to classic beer drinkers, and then to more specialist craft beer drinkers, and then you sort of have to have beers that work in an export setting as well. And so it's yeah, but it's I think yeah, we're certainly hoping this year to broaden out the style range that we've got. We've got a lot of IPAs in the mix at the moment, and to be able to broaden that out a lot more. I mean, some people might have seen we've just started releasing bottles towards the end of last year, really in response to the deposit return scheme. But that gives us at least the packaging format to be able to do a lot more limited releases as well. So it's yeah. So no, we're excited for this year to increase the degree of innovation that's coming from each of these, and hopefully we can sort of, I guess, regain that connotation of experimentation that we had.
You mentioned some kind of spontaneous fermentation there as well. Is it difficult to do that in a brewery where you're also brewing Citra and Full Irish and your IPAs and your clean beers, so to speak? Is it difficult to keep the two in the same brewery, or like how do you manage that?
Yeah, really, really difficult. The yeah, I mean, I guess the trick is to segregate things as far as possible. So when we're doing mixed fermentation beers, we would hand fill those bottles and using some hoses and soft fittings that are completely independent from our clean beer production. Yeah, I mean, every single batch we're doing gets multiple lab testings done from independent lab analysis to sort of ensure that our systems, our procedures are up to scratch to ensure that we don't get cross contamination. But yeah, that's I mean, it is a major concern. I mean, it yeah, that I mean, other than batch size, it's that cross contamination that keeps brewers up at night, trying to satisfy themselves that they can keep their clean beer production safe.
Very good. So I guess how can we support you? That's one of the kind of things I'll probably ask to all the breweries on here. Like, what can we do as beer fans? Where can we find your beer, I suppose, first of all, but what else can we do to kind of to support your brewery?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the why Irish craft beer, and to support Irish breweries in the shops, and I mean, none of us have any real marketing budgets of any form, and so word of mouth is really the most powerful form of marketing that any of us have, and so it's yeah, bringing some beer to house parties and sort of getting your friends hooked on it is
Buy
what
them
we
some
all
beer gifts.
yeah all rely on. Yeah, and certainly encourage people to also try to diversify the styles that they purchase as well. So I mean, it's quite straightforward now for breweries to make economically viable IPAs. So it's a lot more challenging to make economically viable malt forward beers and stouts fermentations and such. So yeah, when you're in the shops to sort of to mix up buying and take a bit more risk with those buying decisions to go for styles that you might not necessarily naturally buy, and so that will have an immediate. I mean, as soon as a brewery can see that I mean, all limited editions often for us is a testing process of the market of where what styles are people looking for, and when we continue to iterate with that, and each one that we do is a test of the market of where are people at the moment, what are people looking for from us? Is it this as an example? And if the reaction is strong, like if it's a really strong positive reaction, then yeah, okay, like I think we're going in the right direction here. Let's do more of this kind of thing. So it's you can send those signals back into a brewery by 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 those buying decisions, by choosing to buy beer styles that are that you're looking for. But
Yeah,
it's
drink seasonally maybe as well. Depending on the time of the year, you might have different tastes, and just kind of go with that as well. Don't just necessarily drink the same thing all year round. Well, look, Scott, we very much look forward to see some new 8 Degrees beer coming out. And best of luck with the future. It's great to have you back in the independent scene. You didn't go anywhere, but welcome back as an independent brewer. Yeah, thanks very much for joining.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity. Happy 2025 to everyone.
Yeah. So next up we have Johnny from Our Brewery. So now let me try and just place the spotlight there for you. So welcome, Johnny. Could you give us an introduction of yourself and Our Brewery?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name's Johnny. I suppose I could be best described as a very passionate homebrewer. I was involved in a previous brewery called Hillstown Brewery, and I decided to move away from it in, I think it was like 2019. And my wife runs a company called Get a Brewed, which supplies a lot of the breweries with ingredients, malt, hops, yeast, process aids, and things like that. And the previous brewery we were involved in was farm-based, and we had this really unique way of approaching where we were brewing beer to be fed to cattle. So beer-fed beef with the Logan family, and I think they continued to run Hillstown for about a year after I had moved on. And then what happened was they closed up. I think it was a mixture of things, obviously all sorts going on, COVID and whatever. I don't know if we want to go into that tonight, but the Get a Brew team supply Brewix brewing equipment, which is a Slovenian-based company, and install little small brew pubs and small breweries. So sort of anything under like 2,000 litres they would do. And Get a Brew does a showroom in Randallstown in County Antrim, and really lovely equipment. I think it was just a really good opportunity for the team there to start their own brewing project. So that's when Our Brewery was born. I suppose it's 3 years ago now, and very much the focus would have been to make barrel aged and fooder aged beer. So they got some really beautiful oak fooders from Bordeaux, which had red wine in them previously, and started with a red Flanders, a saison, and then a 100% spontaneously fermented beer. And I suppose the team, like I have to give a mention to Kevin McLaughlin, who's the head brewer at the time. He did an exceptional job of researching and making the first batches of beer. And I think they aged for a minimum of 2 years before anything was packaged. Some of them was slightly longer, some slightly less. And the idea was to sort of push the boundaries of fermentation a little bit. So not only were we doing spontaneous fermentation, but there's a guy, an awesome dude that works at Get a Brew called Ricardus, and he's originally from Lithuania, and he was telling us about this baked beer, or Kiptinis beer from his home country. And basically Kiptinis is where the mash is taken out after the initial mash in, and the age of, say, 60 minutes or 90 minutes, whatever length of mash they're doing. It's then put in the stainless steel trays and baked in a kiln, and then taken back into the brewery and sparged and fermented with a Nordic yeast strain. And the lads then put that into Jamaican rum barrels and aged it. So they've really been sort of researching and doing things that are weird and wonderful. So I think it was roughly about 5-6 months ago, the first beers that were brewed, as I'd said, about 3 years ago, started to be packaged. So very much unique hand packaging. The brewery does do clean beers, which are canned, everything from pilsners, brown ales, IPAs, Belgian style beers, New England's, with the normal clean beers that you would expect from any brewery. But then the barrel aged stuff was released. So imperial stouts that have been aged for 20 months in bourbon barrels, wild lagers that have been aged in Chardonnay barrels, the Kiptinis beers, mixed firm saisons. And I suppose it's another person to mention that gave the brewery a lot of help was Declan at Otterbank Brewery. So he helped a lot with the packaging of those beers, because I suppose the team, all being really passionate brewing enthusiasts, didn't have the experience. And I noticed Scott mentioning that they were doing it at 8 degrees, and I'm sure he'll say the same or agree with this comment, that there's not a lot of it being done in Ireland, and you kind of have to reach out to those that are doing it and those that are in other parts of the world and try and get their help, knowledge and assistance to create something that's quite special. So the Our Brewery team, I think, have executed the first 6 beers that they've released exceptionally well. They're packaged in champagne and half champagne bottles with a cork and cap. I think they took that approach that they wanted to put the cork in to preserve the shelf life, so to try and make sure that there's 10 years shelf life on it, and just to create that experience. So the Our Brewery team are using the tagline, enjoy the experience, and I guess the idea is that they want people to pick up one of these bottles, share it with friends, create a memory and a moment, and actually have some sort of authenticity there, that it isn't just drinking for effect. The team that are there have they've got really nice equipment, and it allows them to do things that you wouldn't be able to do normally as a startup, because there's so much equipment in the showroom. So I guess the most interesting thing for them was the spontaneous fermentation, which I think they've been blessed with the microflora that's around the brewery, or either it was just fluked. It's hard to tell. The Untamed Wild Ale, I think, is exceptionally good beer. It really has been blessed with something unique. So the likes of that's a turbid mashing regime, multiple step mashes. Then the Loiterton is used as a whirlpool vessel, and it's wheeled outside. Temperatures have to be checked to make sure it's the right time of the year and the right temperature. It cools naturally overnight, and I know the lads had the yard all sealed off, so there's no vehicles coming in to kick up dust or anything, and cooled overnight and then put into the oak and allowed to really just do something on its own. That to me was something really special, because when I had called in and was chatting with the guys and tasting the beer over time, the evolution of that beer, the changes that it went through was phenomenal. It went from being really confused and almost thinking that it was just a drain pour, to turning into something really special and beautiful. so that, like, our brewery is just all about pushing the boundaries of fermentation. The one point that I suppose from my experience is that you can't just do that. I know there is a couple of really special guys doing it. That's just their only thing. But I suppose the lads need clean beers that are going into the supermarket, independent, off licenses and bars to cover overheads. And it's really important to have a sustainable business that is able to reward the team, make sure everybody's got a secure job and they're getting paid well. And I guess that's why the clean beers are still in the mix. But I know the lads are they're all passionate about making seasonal specials and trying to push the boundaries with unique things rather than just, churning out the 3 core beers. So I guess that's what our brewery is all about.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. Well, their passion definitely I'm just having the wild lager here, the humble wild lager, and it's absolutely phenomenal. There's so much complexity to it, as you would expect, I suppose, from such a well-made spontaneous fermentation. You mentioned the fooders there. Maybe could you describe what they are, what the benefits of them are? I don't know if I picked you up wrong there, but I think you might have mentioned that the fermentation happens in them as well as the aging, or did I pick you up wrong there?
Yeah, the lads, obviously, they take, each beer would have a different approach. Obviously, the spontaneous fermentation, it has to happen in the fooder. Some of the beers that they've created so far that have been in oak have been fermented initially in stainless steel vessels and then transferred to the oak after that. And as Scott was mentioning just before I come on, it's important to keep the clean beers totally separate and, separate hose and separate systems, separate, operating procedures, just to make sure there's no cross-contamination. So anything that would have been spontaneously fermented would have been transferred directly from what the lads are using as a loiter ton outside, as their cool ship. The loiter ton for the Brewix is on wheels, so it becomes a cool ship. It's wheeled outside, and then once it hits the desired temperature and cools overnight, it's transferred straight into the wood. But I suppose to answer your question, the oak fooders are just a very large oak barrel. So rather than having for example, there's 3 oak fooders in our brewery and they're 1,500 litres each. So to have the same amount of oak barrels, you're going to get a different finish. You might get more oak, more vanilla. You might get more tartness or more sweetness from certain barrels. And the fooder gives you that in one unique vessel. And there's some really good guys out there selling oak. The team use Quercus in Bordeaux. It's a small independent family cooperage, and they source some really unique and special fooders and barrels that allows the team then to obviously engage with them and what they're wanting to achieve, and they pair the different range of oak fooders and barrels to beers that they're wanting to do. Now, so far the team have only released one of the oak fooders, the red Flanders that they have. I tasted recently, just past 3 years old, and they keep saying, yeah, it just needs a little bit more time. And you kind of, in that game, you have to give it the respect and time that it needs, because I really passionately feel if you rush these beers, you miss, the opportunity to create something really, really special. So it's a combined effort from the team with all the knowledge that they have and all the knowledge that people are willing to share, creates something special. I touched on this with yourself and Scott before everyone else joined the chat. I don't think there's anyone in this field making a great deal of money at it. It is definitely a passion project and something that is just being done to create something really, really special, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The fooders, they're generally larger, right, than much larger than a barrel. Does it take longer then to age them to get the flavor that you want out of the beer?
Yeah, you're kind of at at the hands of nature with the spontaneous stuff. So most barrels are 190 litres to 225 litres. Now, the wild lager that you're chatting about, I think it was in a 500 litre Chardonnay barrel. Whereas an oak fooder at our place in our brewery is 1,500 litres. It's just a larger version of it. Now, the lads have cooling plates inside the footers, which allows them to regulate temperature if they feel that it needs that. It's got the stainless steel doors on the front of it for ease of cleaning and things like that there as well. But I suppose the difference between a barrel and a fooder is simply the scale of size. I haven't noticed myself that you get a different flavour profile from a fooder than what you do from a barrel. It's probably more to create consistency over the batch. I'm not sure if you've tasted, say, I know I tasted saisons recently, and there were 6 of them, that would have all created really different flavors. One would have been really tart, one would have been really oaky, and there's no real explanation for that other than that it depends the way that nature evolves within the barrel. There is, I suppose, slightly less wood contact in a fooder in comparison to a barrel, just because of the surface area. I suppose oak fooders are significantly thicker in their staves as well than what a barrel would be. So there's a lot of variables to take into consideration in aging beer and oak.
Okay, very good. We had a question there from John. As a business, do the clean beers make the money to allow the spontaneous fermentation brews, or do they sell well enough to justify production?
I think, to be really genuinely honest, my experience would be that the clean beers are needed to cover overheads to allow the aging process to take place without putting pressure on the brewery owner to try and force stuff out before it is. So if clean beers are paying the overheads and making sure that the business is being run sustainably and responsibly, then you can afford to, like, for example, the Red Flanders that I had mentioned, that's probably sat over a year longer than was expected. You haven't got a commercial push to try and force that out earlier. So the clean beers are covering the overheads and making a reasonable profit, which allows the aging and spontaneous fermentation process just to evolve naturally. There's no pressure then on the brewery to try and fast track that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It absolutely does. So how have your beers been received? Do you sell on trade as well, on draft in pubs? Do you have, how well is it received? I can imagine beers like this might maybe work in restaurants as well. Do you recommend food pairings, things like that?
We did. I'd be very friendly with Paul the Ripple that owns Sleepy Hollow Restaurant. If you're ever in the north, it's just outside Newton Abbey. He makes exceptionally high quality food at an affordable price, and for a long time the team have worked with him making his own house IPA, and whenever it came to preparing for a launch for the Our Brewery beers, he was part of that process. He did a really detailed high-level food pairing menu, and the idea was to build the food around the beers, and he did that exceptionally well. And I would say that Our Brewery beers, the bottle aged beers, are designed mainly for restaurants to put it on their wine list. I personally think that they sit exceptionally well on the wine list because of the complexity that's with the beers. Whereas the clean beers obviously are available in all the good independent off licenses, and like the lads have a range of beers in Tesco NI, and Tesco have been awesome because they've obviously they order high volume and they pay really quickly, and you're getting access to a consumer that doesn't shop in the off licenses, from what I can see. And then we try to support the independent off licenses. The lads are creating them unique one-off specials regularly, so that they're not, I think there's an idea out there that breweries are selling, to supermarkets, so the independents don't like it. Whereas the Our Brewery team are taking the approach that they're making beers to suit both, and pricing's, not biased to the big, massive multiple chains. The idea is to try and tap into as many different consumer groups as possible. It's more important that the beer gets out there and to as many people, and just consistency and quality is at the forefront. It's not really, to build it up to be something enormous and sell it on. It's just about the beer.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you that reach that you wouldn't necessarily get otherwise.
Yeah.
I'll give you a shout out to your own distribution as well, because I ordered some of your beers directly from your website, and it came the next day. So very impressed with that. So yeah. So I guess what are your plans for the future? Is like, do you have any? What's going to? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I suppose that kind of question. Is there kind of future plans?
Yeah, look, I just love the beer scene that we have here, and if anyone's watching this that's in the beer, I really strongly encourage you to support the local breweries that you love. It's so difficult out there for them at the moment. Not only with the complexity of the licensing legislation in Ireland, north and south, but also, they've went through COVID, a cost of living crisis, and now there's so many financial pressures on them. I genuinely don't think the consumer understands how hard independent craft brewers are working in Ireland. A lot of them are friends of mine. I see the personal toll that it has on them. I see, the effort that they're putting in, and they really do deserve a lot more support than what they're getting. The Our Brewery team, their attitude is to keep pushing boundaries of fermentation and creating really special things. There's a lot of beer in oak that has yet to be packaged. There's beautiful red triples. There's loads more saisons. There's more spontaneously fermented beers that have been done at different stages. I know the lads are working on, they're doing some with fruit, that'll be, sort of the spawn beer will be aged on the fruit for another period of time before it's packaged as well. In relation to the clean beer side of things, they'd probably push to release a special at least every other month to go into all the indies off licenses to create a bit of a variety on what's out there. I just seen a message pop up there from Steve with some really awesome collaborations lined up over the next year. I don't really want to give the info right now, because I know if I do that, the team will give off to me. You're giving out when we haven't really finalized what we're doing with who. But I know they're speaking to some really big names, and they've been working on some really good stuff. And like I sincerely cannot take credit for what the lads are doing there. And it would be unfair of me not to mention the lads as well. So Mike heads up the brewery and does an awesome job. He's a super passionate home brewer who worked in Get a Brewed for a long time, worked alongside Kevin, and then when Kevin moved on, he took over, and Morgan then came in. He's a brewer originally from New Zealand and has worked in some awesome breweries. He's come in, I think he's created a lot of efficiencies, and him and Mike are doing an awesome job. And Chris from Modest Beer as well rents a small space in the brewery, and I think he's been really helpful to the team as well in terms of support and ideas. And like, the lads are doing an awesome job, and I'm excited to see where they take it over the next while. And obviously they're getting loads of support from the Get a Brew team. So yeah, look, it's positive. I think the worst is over in the industry, and it's just going to take a little bit more time to wash through. But anything that I'm tasting they're doing at the minute, I couldn't be prouder. So
yeah, absolutely. Have you ever been to the I'm not sure if it's happening this year, but the Wild Beer Festival in Mullingar?
Yeah, a couple of times I wanted to go to it, and I think I had COVID once and other things going on in the background. But if it's on and I'm available, I'll be at the next one. I know Declan from Otterbank
Yeah,
talks very highly of it. So yeah, no, that's definitely one for the list for this year.
yeah, no, it makes sense. All right. So I guess just to maybe start wrapping it up, where can we find you? Where can we buy your beers? And how can we support you?
Well, I suppose our brewery beers are available in the north extensively. We recently put a few pallets through Adam at Pro Edition in the south, and I know he's only started to get the beers out there. But I hope he continues to do that and does it really well. So the beers are available on getterpoured.com, and they should be with you next day. As you say, we'd love to see you support the independent off licenses, and that's north and south. And if you're in the north, Tesco and I have all the clean beers and cans, but I suppose the bottled beers are the ones that people want for the special occasion. They're in stock all the time at Getter Board. So wherever's your choices, we're kind of led by the consumer rather than us wanting to push one direction. But lots of options, and like we really do appreciate the support.
Yeah, and I must say, beautiful artwork as well. Lovely bottles. I did have to smile at the 10-year best before date as well. That was really cool.
Yeah, I think it's one that the lads are happy with. They're not dealing with Tesco saying they want 12 months before they, and the artwork is a credit to Ali Simpson, super simple. He's an artist from Ballymena, very talented guy, was pivotal from the very start and worked on the whole brand with Cian Saunders, who did the little logo is the outline of an oak footer, for anyone that's wondering what it was. But yeah, no, like the team have done an awesome job, and all credit to them.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing on your website as well, you've got one of your aims is to bridge the gap between wine and beer. And I thought you could kind of think of what does that mean, but from opening this and the presentation and everything, I can totally see where that's coming from.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, look, Johnny, thanks very much for coming on, and we look forward to seeing what comes in the future, and all the best.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up is Fergal from Four Provinces. Welcome, Fergal. If you wouldn't mind giving an introduction of yourself and of Four Provinces.
Thank you, first of all, for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. It's somewhat of a rebirth for our own brewery. We've been in production for about 10 years now, and we've had our ups and downs, and we've tried a lot of things. But yeah, myself and Andrew Murphy, a Belfast man, started the brewery about 10 years ago, and we have brewed many types of beers over that time. And in that time, we opened a pub. Just largely in frustration with not being able to sell to the public from the brewery. That's another story, but it just happened that there was a pub that had been closed right behind us there, and the time was right. The timing was right. We just went and we wanted to see if we could lease it first off the owner, and it just turned out that one of the leases had failed. And we just, at the right time, the right place, spoke to him, and we opened the pub. Not to great volume at the start, not great success at all. We didn't have. I think we just had Guinness at the start, one tap. The rest were all craft. But where we are, it just didn't allow for that. So we kind of brought in a lot of obviously other breweries. We bought a lot of stock of other breweries, and then we kind of realised very quickly that we had to play kind of both sides of the coin there. But yeah, the brewery was ticking along in the background all the time. And when we opened the pub, we kind of quickly realized that it's like, Jesus, like opening a second brewery. It's a second business. And our eyes slightly kind of just with all the drama that goes with opening a pub, especially a large enough one, took our eye off the brewery. We kept producing. We grew our customer base fairly substantially on draft, and a little bit of off trade as well. So it's been kind of up and down. And then about 3 years ago, we kind of just for no reason. I kind of took up a lot of the pub stuff, and I was a salesperson in the brewery, obviously, as well. But it started to get kind of on top of us in terms of our manpower, and my business partner, was preoccupied with other things, and it kind of got to the stage where the brewery, was being just neglected slightly. Not that the beer was bad or anything like that. We brewed some really, really good beers, but I kind of found myself, thinking about, why, like, you have to really just, understand what you're doing. And I was kind of being pulled every way. And eventually then my partner there last year, eventually, or this year, just in the last few months, sold up out of the brewery for personal reasons. He couldn't continue. And I was able to find investors to come in and purchase his shares. And before we did that, we considered different options. Obviously, I was left kind of on my own with the brewery, for no fault of my partner, business partner. Just he couldn't be there for the last maybe 2 years probably. And I decided then to contact some of my contacts here in Dublin, some friends and people with pubs, and try to bring a little bit of value into the investment instead of just to get him bought out. He needed to leave, so I had a certain amount of shares to sell. I went out and I just asked a few people, and the conversations were so short. I probably could have asked 20 people and they all would have said yes. All the publicans, they're all dying to get their hands on a little bit of, like from the brewer side of things. I probably sound a bit more from the business. I suppose I'm coming from a slightly bit more from the business side of things, where Andrew was the brewer, and when I looked at it very coldly, I tried to find out how, 10 years trying everything, going well sometimes, ups and downs, I'm sure, Cam, and like any brewer basically in Ireland, or any brewery even in Ireland would say it's just very difficult to put your finger on what works all the time, and it very rarely does work all the time. So we decided to bring in publicans into the mix. People who I liked and knew wouldn't be would be realistic in their viewpoints, but also had an interest in actually in what they're serving in their own pubs, and that they were 100% behind my project at this point. So Andrew got bought out, and now I'm running both businesses. Funnily enough, the pub and the brewery. So. The brewery now is standing to grow fairly quickly. We had a lot of customers that were regaining. We had some export contracts, mainly on draft, actually, funnily enough. So we're a bit of a strange one, where we've actually reopened just to the on-trade. So we only sell draft beer at the moment, and that'll continue until at least the summer this year. So there's a huge amount of opportunity, obviously, where we are in South Dublin, around us, and I've fairly deep contact book where I would know a lot of the publicans, and I understand, they would have a fairly high regard for our beers. We've poured them in many pubs around the area, so growing that business again is very important to me, and to get the visibility on the taps. Now, I understand that from a certain point of view that we've no beer on the off trade for the time being might be a bit frustrating or whatever, and that's the way I'm going. The brewery size, our brews are between 2,000 to 3,000 liters each time, and the best way to make a living out of that is to go onto the taps, especially with really only 5 or 6 breweries competing. When I say breweries, I'm not talking about Heineken or Guinness. I'm talking about other microbreweries in Dublin for those taps. So I really see a huge opportunity. I think that with the lads and changing times, de facto, essentially, launching their products has opened the doors for people's minds to maybe look at the fact that these guys who are wedded to Heineken and Guinness for years are now looking at an alternative. And I think that mindset has probably been changing for a long time, but it took people who did it by accident, essentially, to do it. So we are going to grow organically. We've got a lot of interest in our beers, and a lot of publicans are going to take it. So I'm concentrating on that. I've taken on a salesperson and a brewer, obviously. So and we've about between the two businesses about 20 staff. So we've a lot of stuff going on. But really trying to stay true to what we want to do. The branding, especially the quality of the beer, is vital. Obviously for us, our beers are fairly. They wouldn't be as I suppose I would call them clean beer. The new terminology I'm learning today. And we're looking to try and hit Heineken and hit Guinness in the pocket. Like, so we're going after taps, getting people onto beer that, getting them, getting people who, when you go onto the on trade, you really are competing neck and neck with the lagers and with the ales and stuff. And there's a segment, yes, of craft beer, but there's a huge opportunity and especially from a publican's point of view. I've seen both sides. A real low quality offering to the public, and it's only really a matter of getting people onto them. And some of my new investors are going to be very helpful in that regard. So yeah, really excited for the future now. I have to say, I'm on my own. Well, not my own, but I'm running both businesses on my own. So I'm really excited about it. And I really think. As Cam said there, things move very, very slowly in the craft beer world. Although you might be doing crazy stuff in the brewery, But I do think things are shifting. But it probably needs it probably needs another push. And I have my own ideas on how that might happen. We can discuss that later in a few minutes. But definitely for microbreweries, the off trade is very competitive. Certainly is really, really difficult. There's very little brand loyalty. Innovation is a huge part of it. So with the size of our brewery and manpower, we've decided to go down the kind of draft route. And yeah, hopefully I'll be still chatting to you here the next year. But
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Well, that was great. You probably answered about 2 or 3 of my questions there, so that was that was very efficient. Thank you.
No problem.
So, I mean, I'd say there would have been a time when you mentioned there about trying to find partnerships with other publicans or talking to other publicans. There probably would have been a time where I thought I would have been surprised by them being so interested, but changing times happened recently. So obviously there is an interest in going into the brewing scene. How has the Changing Times Brewing company changed the scene in Dublin? Is it something to be welcomed? Is it something that you see as a challenge?
So basically, they haven't really changed. They're really they're business people. They're basically going to look after their own pubs and a patch, right? So it's nothing to do. They're not breaking the glass ceiling in that respect. But what it is doing, it's showing their Guinness and Heineken addicted customers that they don't necessarily, and it's by accident. It's just an off, but it's going to really help a lot of the smaller breweries because it's showing them that there's more beer out there, and they did it essentially. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but they did it first of all because they wanted to have a different offering in their pubs. But they also did it to shake up the fact that Heineken and Guinness are continuously raising their prices, and the value to the consumer is absolutely terrible. So now, look, I'm not in there kind of. I know Shane and I know some of the publicans involved, but I wouldn't know them. I know the Mangans and stuff like that. But I have to say that it's just done kind of. It's kind of bright. It's helped people's attitudes to craft beer. Like they don't that's all it is. But it will be available in all their pubs. It means that other publicans are looking at them going, you know what, if they can put those beers in, and let's say 8 Degrees have a really good offering. Their IPA is fantastic. I'm going to put that in. or like even down in Cork, I'm sure there's probably the same thing. Like Shane Long's a Cork man, but I can guarantee you now, there's so many other publicans now looking to try and get onto that, because they really have been mistreated by the breweries over the years. Now, but the reality is that there are people out there gouging customers. I understand that. I have a pub in essentially Crumlin, so I have a ceiling of what I can sell. But I do know the market, and I understand that some of them are really taking the piss. So that's one side of it. But there's 90% of the publicans are really struggling, in the sense that the price of the beer has gone so high, they cannot keep putting it up. People are stopping going out because they're so expensive. So they went to themselves, you know what, I'd love to own my own brewery, and I'd love to be able to, or I'd love to deal with a smaller brewery who may be able to give me a better price and a better quality product. So yeah, so that's where I can see real change happening. And I wouldn't have said that 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and I'm sure Scott would agree with me here. I'm sure John would agree with me here. Things are changing, and and changing times essentially have kind of, by accident, helped all the other microbreweries. And Clinchy's Stephen's a great example there with Ambush. Like, I mean, he really has, he has been banging that door for years. He really has, and I know Stephen. We started contract brewing with Stephen when we started out, and Paul, and the thing that the lads don't realize in changing times, they're gonna have to join the queue. I mean, you're up against Ambush basically in most pubs around. So Ambush, fantastic beer, right? And sorry, I'm only talking about Dublin here, so please don't feel like I'm very Dublin centric, but just let's just say it's a microcosm of everything else that's happening. There's some serious moves going on, and people are starting to wake up the fact that there are other beers out there. There's better beers out there, and it will take 10, 15 years for, I don't know what, John might be able to tell me what proportion of the market is actually craft beer at the moment on draft, but it's definitely below 5%. But I would say that will definitely rise it'll rise to 10, maybe 15, 20%. Something does have to happen before that happens. There are a few reasons. There are a few people, I can't say much, but there are some moves being made in the background with certain politicians to look to see if there's a legislative thing we can do with microbreweries and pubs, as they have done in France and a few other countries in the EU. So that actually is happening in the background there as well. Now, it's not, a lot of publicans won't be happy with that, obviously, with the kind of paydays they're getting from some of the breweries. But from my point of view, and from my business, we're very different, I'd say, from Scott and from John, in the sense that we just do draft beer at the moment, and I'm very fixated on it. But there is huge opportunity in the market at the moment. A lot of publicans are so dismayed, so angry at Heineken and Guinness, that they are open to conversations, but they would not have been 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, they wouldn't have been. So, and a lot of the price increases, they were obviously grain, etc., and electricity and all that type of thing. But a lot of the price increases with Diageo and Heineken, where a lot of that money was put into marketing, marketing, and also new brewery for Diageo, obviously, in Selbridge, etc. So there's a lot of reasons for it, but for us, I see really good things. I think the market has stagnated slightly from the growth a few years ago, but it's definitely going to grow again. And Our Brewery is it's great to see Scott and 8 Degrees back in the game. 100%, and obviously a lot of breweries have gone out of business. Margins are tight, things are tough, but I think if we stick it out, there's something happening, and I'm really positive for the future. And even for the off trade as well, the craft beer section still holds a large section. I was in Eurospar today. I was in just down the road from me there. Beautiful big selection of loads of different great beers, between Rye River all the way to Third Barrel to everywhere. So look, and Rascals and stuff like that. So look, the game, the beers are all phenomenal. There's no drain pours, as I said, anymore. The quality is there. You just need to keep knocking on the door. And look, if anyone's an example of, perseverance, Stephen Clinch and Trouble Brewing is certainly one of them. And Stephen has made a lot of his gains on the draft side, which is a tough game. And it's about knowing people. It's about being able to present your beers well, and it's about being able to put the time in to train people and staff in those pubs to sell your beer. So that's where I'm at the minute.
Yeah, and the demand is there, like you said. The selection in off licenses has improved
massively.
And that doesn't appear out of nowhere. That there is obviously a demand there. People are buying these beers, and those same people are walking into pubs. So, like you said, there has to be a change. Like there was always bound to be a change, that people are going to start demanding these beers and looking for these beers more. And that's what I hope that Changing Times would have been, and hopefully it will be. That it's sort of a bridge to, well, maybe I'll try this Changing Times beer, and bring you onto an ambush or whatever.
It certainly wasn't out of love for craft beer that this happened. It is, but
frustration,
yeah, but it's certainly going to help us. So whether I really wish them all the best, and but they will, once they get out of their little bubble of between them all, they're going to have to join the queue. They're going to have to compete with Ambush, with us, like with Scott, with John. Like, it's not like you're up against now like a juggernaut in a way of quality. So I think also a lot of microbreweries, I think Scott alluded to, there's not much of a marketing budget there, but you can do a lot now with very little. So we're kind of we're nearly neck and neck with them in terms of like some of the marketing stuff, especially on social media with some of the microbreweries is brilliant. So look, we're getting there, but I do think that a legislative move is possible. I think that it would benefit the taxpayer. It would benefit the public purse, considering the amount of jobs it takes to brew 1 liter of beer, etc. We know all that. So the argument is certainly there for that, and I don't think it would be very, very difficult nowadays. Maybe not before, but nowadays for anyone to argue against something like that. And it's like, I'm trying to get my daughter to learn music. You kind of have to push them a little bit, even when sometimes they don't want it. So you have to push it through a little bit. I think a bit of legislative protection and help in the bars would certainly would. And that's all. I can't say any more than that, but I definitely think there are people, and I know there is moves afoot to see if we can get that changed. And it's not going to be as difficult as possibly people probably think.
Yeah, it all sounds very positive. So Lisa and John had some questions there around increasing your presence in different pubs around Dublin, and also the brews that are available in your own pubs at the moment. So yeah, what is available in the 4 provinces, and I suppose, does your new partnerships help you expand to other pubs in Dublin, and will the taps be rotating as well?
Well, yeah. Well, so we're going to stick out with 4 beers that we're going to really try and push out, and each of them kind of serve a certain category in the market. So one of the beers, our newest beer, is called Dublin Dove. It's a nitro stout. It's only available in the pub and in Johnny Fox's pub up in the mountains at the moment. We were very lucky in the sense that our new brewer, Ricardo used to be the head brewer in Urban Brewing with O'Hara's. He's a lot of experience in Mexico. And we tried nitrogenation this year. It went fairly well for us. And we have the bones of a brilliant, really, really good stout. Sorry, I have a budgie here. Sorry.
I don't know, he just slotted in there like as if nothing was happening.
Anyway, so Dublin Dove is available there, but we're in about maybe 10 pubs at the moment. But by the end of January, it's looking probably like 20 to 30 pubs. We've a lot of the new investors have a lot of, like, you know, they have some publican friends, and you know we're working as hard as we can to get it out there. So mainly we have a lager which now is going to be a True Blue Irish Lager. Obviously, Alan Brogan is a Dublin footballer. He's backed us there. And Alan is going to help do a bit of sales for, not sales. He's going to help me out a bit with getting the beer out there. Look, there's a large lager market out there. Ricardo was a lager expert. He's really knowledgeable on brewing high quality lagers, and the newest recipe, the Dublin the True Blue lager is certainly going to be one you can't put down. I mean, like, it's a very light, easy drinking lager. And then the other beers are Fela Pale Ale, which is now we've settled on a very beautiful recipe, a lovely malt bill. It's a really decent pale ale. Again, not very strong, 4.2, and then our Piper IPA, which is always our bestseller over the years. We've kept that going. And yeah, look, it's about getting the taps. A lot of places are tied into Heineken and Diageo, but look, you know, it's not as lucrative for them anymore to have long 2-3 year contracts. You know, they're not. There's lines available. They're opening up everywhere. Publicans are more open for new beers and new partnerships, and we call them partnerships because really what it is like, it's an investment in the pub. They're taking you on, and you have to help sell them the beer as well. You can't just drop in a keg and walk away, you know. So like tomorrow, for example, or Monday, I'm going out to the Talca House to do a training with their staff. I'll do the same with a few of the other pubs now next week as well. And that'll be continuous now for the next 6 to 12 months. I have a salesperson on the road as well who'll be doing the same. So look, it's a grind and it's hard, but I think my 10 years in the business have helped me know just to get the contacts, make the contacts. Same thing with Stephen tell you, like, in trouble, it's all about who you know and how you get on with people, and the quality of the beer has to be obviously excellent. But it's a small market, but it's a lucrative market, and there's a lot of drinking going on out there, and there's good margin out of a keg. So why shouldn't we get it? I mean, like, one thing that breaks my heart in my own pub is that Coors Light is probably the biggest lager. Like, it's outselling Guinness sometimes, and I just scratch my head sometimes. And I'm not criticizing Coors Light drinkers or anything like that, but I'm just thinking, like, we have amazing lager here that it's just so hard to get people onto it. So it's about touching base with the customers, trying to get them to drink it and to market it and get it out there. And it takes time and it takes grind.
I guess you can't ignore that market, though. There are a lot of lager drinkers. I think it's been mentioned before as well, with Scott and with Johnny, that you need the IPAs, you need the lagers, you need the stouts. How do the beers receive in your pub? Do you try to nudge them? Like, if they order a Coors Light, do you try to nudge them towards your lager?
Every single Coors Light drinker got, like, offered a pint of True Blue or pottle. It was pottle lager before. We changed the recipe slightly, but the pottle, that's gone now. It's going to be True Blue or Dublin lager, and they got a pint of it. A few of them stayed on it. A few of them went back to Coors, and it's more a comfort thing. It's like they have a comfort blanket. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But they can come off it, though. It's about, the thing is, if one of them drinks it, the other one will drink it, and the other one will drink it. And next thing, all of a sudden, they're all drinking it. And it's competitive in price. So, like, we obviously reduce the price of our own beers in our own pub to get people onto it. So we've just it's going to take about 6 months. Like, so there's no quick wins really, but like, what kind of keeps you going is the relationships and the publicans. They're all in the same boat. They're all struggling. Like, a lot of them are struggling. Like, and if you understand that, and you can go in and speak to them and just explain that you're a small business too, that you'll help them out if they help you out. And genuinely now, most publicans, there's very few anymore that will just not even look at you. Like I remember walking into pubs a few years ago. I swear to God, I was like, fucking, who the hell? Like it was like I was carrying the virus into them. You know what I mean? It was, and now it's totally different. So look, I'm really optimistic, I have to say. And I think that if once the infrastructure, breweries have enough kegs and they're able to deal with BOC and understand that market, like they really should go for it, because Heineken are very vulnerable, and so are Diageo in a lot of ways. And there's 13 taps on every Python and every bar, or sometimes 2, and there's definitely a place for you. So you just need to get into them. It might take 3 times to call in, but like, look, that's the way it is. Don't give up. That's it.
That sounds very positive. I hope that catches on in the rest of the country as well, because we could certainly do with it. It would be remiss of me not to mention.
I think it is happening.
It definitely is. Yeah,
there's very few pubs you go to nowadays. There are very few pubs who don't have like an option. 2 or 3 options. Like, and I know Lisa visits many pubs, and she's she could probably she could probably tell you more than me, but the offering is amazing now. It's really changed. Like sometimes you need to take stock and look back 5 years ago, 10 years ago, understand what was there to what's there now. Yeah. And it's incremental and it's slow, but it's happening. So you just need to make sure you're the one that breaks through and gets, like, for example, some pubs only require 1 pale ale. You can't have, like, we don't, sometimes I go into a pub and they go, I'll take you on. I said, no. Well, like, you've got 3 pale ales at the bar. Like, there's no point in me putting my tap in.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, like, you don't win, I don't win. And I just move on. And they respect that. So you just...
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the way it is.
It would be remiss of me not to mention Gob Fluke. I think Nelly on Twitter mentioned it earlier, and John and Dave have mentioned it here in the chat. Is it still on draft in your pub? Is it going to be on draft in more pubs in Dublin, and will it be in small packs?
So we haven't discontinued it or anything like that. We just haven't brewed it in ages. So with the focus, with me opening the brewery again, really fully, we have a lot in 4 beers. But in the summertime, so say June, July, we're going to do a few canning runs, and I can be fairly certain that we'll have Gob Fluke on can, and probably on draft in the pub as well. But up to then, I think we're just gonna as I think one of your guests alluded to earlier there. I think Jonathan said it, like, the bills have to be paid first. So we and the dark mild, if you told look, it's okay telling a publican about a lager or an IPA even, but they won't know what a dark mild is. So it's hard to sell that particular type of beer into any pub except for your own, and really appreciate the love, and it will be back, don't worry. The recipe is in the safe. Securely, the safety security box in the safe, a crack with a nuclear button on it. But no, it's there. We will definitely brew it again. It's just a capacity issue. We're pushing out lagers, and as Scott and as John will tell you, they do take up space, unfortunately, in the tanks, and take a little bit longer than the ale. So yeah, look, we'll get there. And I promise you, we're revamping our website in the next few months, and we'll have an option to be able to buy a limited amount of cases of different beers. But look, I'll be straight, like, there's way more money in selling kegs at the moment for us. The margin's massive compared to cases of beer. So that's where we're at. And we don't have our own bottling facilities or canning at the moment. We're looking to, obviously, once we reach a certain point, we're probably going to move from where we are, just in terms of space, storage, and hassle, as the lads will tell you, like, kegs take space. All these people our breweries, like, backing onto a lane there with 5 or 6 other businesses, and it's probably we just need to reach a point first before we can leave that particular space, but there's just plans already in the pipeline. So yeah, no, definitely we will see Dark Mild again. And look, I'd hate to let Nelly down. You know, he'd be very upset.
Yeah, don't let him down.
He'd be very upset. He'd be extremely upset if we didn't do it. Only for Nelly, you know.
Yeah. Well, I live in Portlaoise, and I can say there's one pub here that has a Dark Mild on, the Ballycacavan Endurance.
It's lovely. Yeah.
And actually just one in a tie as well. And it seems to have survived for the past year, or the guts of a year. So somebody must be drinking it. So
wasn't you, Peter?
It can work. Well, you know, I can definitely. I definitely had one or two, you know, just to taste it.
That's a great beer as well. Great brewery as well. Great brewery.
First Craic meetup when it's back on draft. Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say it would go well. Lisa suggested Midsummer Festival for a mild, really. There is the well, I don't know if it's happening again this year, but there is the Cask Festival down in Mullingar. So I'd say that would go really well down there.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll be probably planning what we're doing for June, July, at the end of February. So I'll probably know more then, and I'll post it up online. What the kind of what we're going to be doing in terms of like releases. With there's a few people in the queue there who want us to brew beers for them and stuff. So so keep an eye out. But no, look, Gut Fluck is coming back, and don't worry, it will be there. And I really appreciate the love for it as well. It was a great beer. It is a great beer. So we'll get it back.
And John, just wanted to confirm your lineup: Dublin Dove, True Blue, Fela, and we reckon it was Piper was the other one.
Piper IPA, yeah, the Piper Amber IPA, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So 4 beers. So yeah, look, keep an eye out for all our beers. We'll be posting online all the time, any new accounts that are opening up. And look, once the website's done again, it'd be easy to find where we are. We're expanding quick enough, hopefully. So look, watch this space. Really excited and just want to say as well, Peter, fair play to you for taking on this again, and appreciate the shout out. Just it was at a good time where it was a squeaky bum time for us, where we got new investors in, and it's really exciting time for us, and it was really appreciated bringing us on as well. Thanks very much, and thanks to everybody who's joined us as well. It's really good crack.
Oh, well, pardon the pun. Well, thanks very much. It was a pleasure to have you all on. That wraps it up for the evening. So I hope you enjoyed it, and go find all 3 breweries and follow them on the socials, buy their beers, and we'll see you next time.